It's easy to kind of keep your head down, grow your business, keep saving, but how do you get it right so you have no regrets?
How much regret will you have if you don't buy this and have those experiences with your family?
If you get in the habit of like not enjoying life and you're constantly gonna be worried about just saving enough, you need 10 million to be set.
Those guidelines are garbage. 10 million isn't always 10 million, right? There are a lot of numbers and assumptions that we factor in. A big one is another big one is, and then another big one is,
it's been drilled into you from family, from friends. You got to save. When you've saved enough. And how do you know when you can give yourself permission to actually start enjoying some of this hard-earned income or hard-earned wealth?
Yeah, that's the name of the game.
Yeah, this is the topic we're covering today. So our clients that are in that high income, we'll say $500,000, $1 million, a couple $1 million a year of income. Generally speaking, they're big savers, but we define at EWA a good financial plan. You're living present today. You're enjoying those, 18 years you had with your kids. You're securing the future for the right reason, not because you want to retire someday, because you have financial independence. So you can, do work or life the way you want, the way you see fit, when you see fit, with who you see fit. More importantly, is also not having regret along the way. So in general, we see the kind of clientele that we work with are over accumulating when we look at their goals of when they want to become financially independent, how much they want to give to their kids. It's easy to kind of keep your head down, grow your business, keep saving, but how do you get it right so you have no regrets in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, while also not taking away from the back end and keeping that financial independence front of mind? This is a conversation I think we're having more and more, especially with the prevalence of ideas that are getting thrown out at, people are scrolling on their phones for social media. How would you frame the conversation of what's enough? Why is it not just a specific number? Like you used to hear, like, you need $1 million. That's so specific now in today's day and age. How do we go about figuring this out?
Yeah, first of all, I think that those guidelines, those heuristics are pretty much complete garbage most of the time, right? It's so idiosyncratic. It's so specific to your own personal situation, right? $5 million might be a lifetime of spending for one person. That might be just a couple of years of spending for the other person, right? So it really just completely depends. So just to get that out there, like that kind of that framework. Maybe the biggest factor is, what is your lifestyle today? How much are you spending on a monthly and on a yearly basis? Where is your number where that portfolio can then fund that lifestyle without dipping into the principal over the course of your retirement?
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. So I want to go through a specific example. The household income is $1.5 million. They're spending their fixed costs, and now their house is paid off. We like to break things down in two buckets. What are your fixed costs? Let's keep that in one bank account. So these are your taxes, your utilities, your car payments, things that are generally, they're budgeted out. It has to go in, it has to go out, right? So that was 10 a month. Pretty low for a family making $1.5 million, but again, their house is paid off, their cars are paid off, right? So fixed costs about 10 a month. Their variable cost are 20 a month. So how do we figure this out? We average the last couple of years of, credit cards, January 1st to December 31st. What's flowing out the door? There's some months it's 50 if they take a big vacation. So some months it's 10, but it's average 240, 20 a month. This family is spending $30,000 a month, and they're very disciplined. Their net take home is about $68,000. I'm just going to round it up to 70 for the sake of simplicity for this podcast. So 70 a month's coming in the door. Part of that's base salaries, part of that's bonuses, but on average throughout the year, 70 a month is coming in the door. 30 a month's going out. Now for them, they're not spending, a typical person, if the 40 doesn't have a goal attached to it, we'd automated about 20 a month of savings, which got them on track for their goal of age 60 financial independence. They want to pay for undergrad at least. They also want to have a basic level of legacy. They don't want to ruin their kids by having too much money, but they do want their two kids to have, a decent amount of wealth to start out. These goals are so far on track. They're trending. Now, every time we go meet with them, about every 6 months, they have the other 20 a month. So again, 70 months coming in, 30 months going out to expenses. We're grabbing 20 a month in automatic savings. They're maxing out mega backdoor Roths, 529 plans. They're saving a healthy amount, HSA, broker, direct indexing, brokerage strategy. 20 a month is just accumulating in cash. So every time we, on a yearly basis, they keep about $500,000 of cash. There's an extra like 250 there every year, because they're not spending it. So we've started saving that. And we've always asked them, lifestyle wise, do you guys want to increase your lifestyle at all? Because when we look at what they need at 60, the amount of money they're going to save and what their needs are, they're going to have about triple what they would actually need to be financially independent. This conversation is not a static number of like, oh, you need 10 million to be set. It's more of a constant calibration of, hey, are we going to regret having triple what you need at 60? Is there anything you want to do now that you're not doing? Know this information. And after 5 years of having this conversation, they're starting to do things now that most people avoid out of fear. So for example, they redid their backyard. Their kids are in the pool literally, now they live in Pennsylvania, so they probably have like 5 months of good, but those 5 months, they're in the pool every day, like every night, living their best life. They're redoing the kitchen. Those kind of things that a lot of people put off of fear, because we have this like, they came from a culture where it's like you save everything, you live under your means, which they're doing. But, you get to 60 and how much regret do we have? How much work did you overwork thinking you had to just keep this plan up and you missed the time with your kids under 18? Totally agree, Devin. It's not a static universal number, because what's happened with this specific couple, they were spending 30 a month and now that's up to 40 a month. They've loosened up. They're taking more travel, and the travel, they just took a vacation and they purposely, like, the wife is like, we're not flying first class. I didn't fly first class until like last year, and I don't want my kids like getting this experience. So I would say now they're spending, instead of 30 a month, they're spending 40 a month. So they're saving that other 30. So what's interesting, what's happened is that's taking care of two sides of it, right? The initial financial independence number that we set for them is now higher. It's actually much higher, because when they go to 60 and they, retire or stop earning their paycheck, the amount they're going to need now needs to support 40 a month adjusted for inflation, not 30 a month. We've achieved two things. They have less regret here, and now what they're actually saving is intentional, because now they actually need a higher number because they're adjusting into the higher number. So there's just these little calibrations that you can make into a financial plan can literally sometimes double, or it can be half of what you need. By those conversations, those ongoing conversations, if you say, if I meet you at 30, Devin, and you're like, here's what I need, you need $2 million, and suddenly you go from being, let's just say you're in the corporate world, going from being like a staff finance, and now suddenly you're like the CFO of the company. Of course, you're going to need probably 10 times what we originally planned. So it's so important. I think the ongoing conversation, the financial plan, is so important to figure this out. If you've saved enough, or if you're oversaving, or if you're undersaving, that can change like that, depending on your lifestyle as it progresses. Let's go into the actual like nerdy part of this. What are some like assumptions that we would use in helping someone figure this out? Like what kind of factors will we throw into the plan?
Yeah, again, not to get too wonky here, but there are a lot of numbers and assumptions that we factor in. So the primary one, maybe not the primary one, but a big one is the returns on the portfolio itself. I'd say another big one is inflation. Another big one is taxes. And then another big one is spending, estimated spending in retirement, which we've talked about.
Yeah, Social Security, we're pretty conservative. We use a 2% inflation. We generally, use 3 to 3.5% inflation, 5 to 6% inflation on healthcare. So we try to look at all these factors, and as we change. I mean, as far as life expectancy, yeah, people are typically arguing, so we're running this out and showing them like all the way till 100. In some plans, like, well, I'm not going to live till 100. Well, medical advancements, you could, and we're not recommending you have a plan that lasts 100. We're recommending you have a financial plan that's not just yours. It continues on for your spouse if you die. It continues on for your kids. And there's certain metrics, like we don't know if you're going to need a huge long-term healthcare event is going to occur. We don't know how long you're going to live or what expenses are going to occur. So you do need that rock solid, and it comes with, with conservative assumptions. These conservative assumptions also can lead to you over saving or under saving. So those are really important to agree. And really, I think that's where the Monte Carlo analysis, the standard deviations, all the risk-adjusted stress testing that we do really comes into play as well.
Yep, absolutely. And again, to your point earlier, I mean, it's really about constant recalibration. It's at least twice a year. We take a look at the situation, our projections, our estimations, the variables that we factor in, and if they need to be changed, then we change them. It's as simple as that.
No question. So I want to tell another story. This story happened from a close friend of mine now. He's a client we helped out during residency. A highly specialized surgeon. I think it was like year 2 of like an 8-year track for him. And, during residency, he's got 4 kids and he's married. So his wife is working. So their household income's probably out $120. Their kids are all in private school. So they take on debt to get the kids through private school. They probably have the north of like $500,000 of school debt as well. And they're very charitable. So they're like, I don't know how they did it, but we set a budget. Their kids are in private school. They're giving to charity. We're doing all of these things. income goes from like 150 as a household now to like 1.5. And these are two separate examples I'm giving. It just happens. It's actually, this one's like 1.4. Recently, this client, now they've been super diligent, right? So like a couple years out of fellowship, they went through residency to fellowship. They got all loans for like paid off other than their house. And they've started saving. So now they have like a liquid net worth of about $1 million. So getting those first 4 or 5 years are crucial because you either go through one path, you go buy that huge house and you're stuck with debt for the next 20 years, or you crushed your debt, make a good house decision, and now you're setting yourself up for success. I think this is a really good example because the amount that we're saving was going to put them on track to have about, they wanted financial independence by 60. They're like 39. So we basically got a 20-year window. And so, we were like, okay, you need about $10 million because this family's taking them to about 65 a month. Again, spending about 30 a month, saving 20 a month. And the other 15 is TBD. Like there's some other things they want to do with it. But if they're saving 30 a month, they're going to be well on track, to hit those financial independence goals. One of the conversations we had with them is they wanted to purchase this like second home. Could they afford it? Yes. Would it put them at risk to reach that financial independence goal? Yes. Because with a second home, there's more cost, there's more time that gets sucked away. So this is, again, a classic conversation that we love. You don't do this, what's the cost? Are you going to, because he's looking at what his net worth projection that we're showing him. He's like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do with all this money. Then we're also talking about how he doesn't like the medical landscape and how if he had the autonomy, he would do things differently, right? And he's in the process of trying to make changes and very passionate about his field of medicine. This is where good financial planning conversations happen. They're always behind closed doors. Let's reframe that kind of like, oh, I don't think I'm going to need that much money. Any like high performing physician that, thinks like this gentleman does, is he going to need $10 million at 60? Maybe, maybe not. Does he need that to reach his goals as a physician? I would argue absolutely yes. If you want to, and you're in your 60s, typically as a physician, you're still going to want to operate, you're still going to want to practice. A large part of your identity, your purpose is tied into that. But having the optionality to do things because you want to, not because you need to, at the highest intellectual stage of his career, he's in a now of complete freedom. And so I think that's extremely important. I think it's also extremely important that we don't mess up. Well, his kids are, before 18, they're still under the house. They get the second vacation house. So this was kind of the discussion and the framework for the discussion, because I see physicians kind of say they'll justify, oh, we don't need that much, and they'll stop saving, go all in into this current lifestyle when they had this like awesome plan on track, or they'll pause everything, they'll way over accumulate. So having the right number is about having the sweet spot where, again, you secure and we avoid regret. That's where I think the sweet spot occurs. So that number is going to be different for everyone, but I would say in general, for a household income making $200 to $250, you're probably netting 10 to 12 a month. You're going to need, $3 million adjusted for inflation. So in reality, depending on your age, you're going to need $4 to $6 million. That's the kind of the new 1 million number. If you're in that, top quartile income. If you're a high income earning physician, 7 figures, I'd use 6 to 12. You're going to need between 6 to 12 depending on your lifestyle. Those are the numbers I would use.
Sometimes let's call it 10 million. 10 million isn't always 10 million, right? So we know this, but 10 million in a Roth IRA is much different than 10 million in a pre-tax 401k, right? So that comes back to asset allocation and asset location and structuring that. So it just go back to our point from earlier. There is no number, right? There's a lot of structuring. There's a lot of recalibration. There is a lot of kind of like the soft things that are going on. So back to the client from earlier, how important was them to get that vacation home, right? That's a question that we would ask, right? How important is this to you? How much regret will you have if you don't buy this and have those experiences with your family? And sometimes it's a 10 out of 10, sometimes it's a 1 out of 10, and then we can calibrate based on that information. So it's not always about the spreadsheets and the numbers. It's really about kind of their feelings and, like you said, minimizing that regret.
In this case, I think they are going to do it, but they're going to do both. We're going to figure out a way for other things, because like if you're going to do this is taking up a lot of free cash flow. So we're going to have to really focus on this is it. You're still going to be able to do other stuff in vacations, but how important is this? Is this in your top 5 priority list? So a lot of those big decisions, you just have to, it's not as simple, can you do it? It could be yes or no. It's a simple, how important is it? And what calibrations can we do to achieve and respect like what's most important? I'm reading or hearing a lot about like these, the financial independence, retire early, which I think more and more studies have shown like people just aren't happy if you just like, if you get in the habit of like eating ramen noodles for 10 years and not enjoying life, like you're not going to know how to, even if you get to that financial independence, retire early, you're not going to know how to enjoy life after that. And you're constantly gonna be worried about just saving enough. I've also heard now it's like FIRE, where you save enough and then just you can stop saving. I think the dangerous part of that is like, let's say you're making the example household income of $500,000, you're netting like 23,000 a month. You're living off of 10, you're saving 13. And so by 50, you've saved enough and now you don't need to save anymore. Then from 50 to 65, start spending the 23 a month that you earn. And the initial assumption was you're planning off of spending 10 a month. You're going to have about half of what you need. So again, this isn't a simple, here's what I need number. I can give you with a 90% accuracy. You tell me your income, and generally where you're headed. Yeah, we can get like, here's a number. It's going to be a bigger number than you probably expect. Some of these other like general strategies, I think like getting to a point where you can stop saving, but you're still working, I personally think can be really dangerous, because then you can get really, sloppy with spending patterns of where that money going. And the initial assumptions are now throw the whole thing way off track. So sometimes over saving can be a catastrophic thing if you're missing on life. Sometimes not saving can lead to a lot of inflexibility later. So even if like, let's say someone is saving $5,000 a month and they're already on track. 3 years later, they want to buy a vacation house. Well, if they weren't saving that $5,000 a month, they would have been leaking somewhere else. But now that they're saving that $5,000 a month, we know they can afford that secondary mortgage. We shut that savings off. We start that secondary mortgage and we have it paid off before they're retired. So sometimes saving doesn't need to be just for a specific goal. Sometimes saving can just be to control your money temperature. And life's always going to throw new stuff at you. And I can tell you, even as a financial advisor, I'm always short on cash. Like you're always short on liquidity. Like you're always, myself personally, clients we work with, life always throws curveballs at you. So saving for no reason sometimes is going to save you, honestly, because it's going to allow you to take care of life's unexpected events without going into debt. I think we've covered the majority of this. Devin, any closing thoughts?
Just this idea of balance, balancing your goals today with your security in the future, spending today versus spending in the future, savings, et cetera, and just having those conversations with your advisor and figuring out your goals, what you want, and optimizing the path to getting there as efficiently as possible. So
couldn't agree more. Well, thanks for joining us, and catch everyone next week.
Thanks.